Have you ever felt a moment so strange that it makes your entire sense of reality tremble? That night, I did. I was 17, sprawled across my bed, scrolling aimlessly on my phone, when the faint creak of my bedroom door sliced through the stillness. At first, I froze, thinking it must be the wind or maybe my younger brother sneaking in as a joke. But the silhouette at the doorway was unmistakable. My dad. Standing there. Silent. Hesitant. My mom was asleep in the next room, her gentle breathing a steady rhythm against the quiet house. The hum of the refrigerator and the faint rustling of the trees outside were the only other sounds. Everything felt ordinary, safe until that moment. Seeing him there, wide-eyed and tense, made the air heavy, charged with unspoken tension. My heart thumped as I tried to make sense of it. Why was he here? In my room? At this hour? My dad had always been a figure of warmth and humor. His presence filled the house with laughter, whether he was making pancakes with extra chocolate chips on weekends or telling wild stories that made me double over with amusement. My mom, gentle and steady, complemented him perfectly, soft-spoken yet resilient, nurturing yet firm. Together, they painted a picture of a family I believed was unshakable. Lately, though, things had felt different. Dad seemed distracted, often lost in thought, while Mom worked long shifts at the hospital. Small changes I had ignored before now felt like warning signs I couldn't fully interpret. And here he was, standing in my room, a man I trusted completely, suddenly a stranger cloaked in unease. Dad! My voice trembled despite my effort to sound calm. He flinched, startled, as if I had disrupted some delicate balance. I noticed a tightness in his shoulders, a guilt that seemed almost tangible. His hesitation, the way he avoided my eyes, made my stomach churn. Something had gone wrong, something far heavier than a simple late-night visit. He shifted, words faltering on his lips, and my mind raced through possibilities, none of them comforting. Whatever he had come to say, it was urgent, private, and clearly weighed on him. I wanted to reach out, to reassure him, but a cold knot of dread twisted inside me. The safety of home, the foundation I had taken for granted, suddenly felt fragile, like thin glass under too much pressure. I realized, with a sinking clarity, that this was no ordinary night, no casual conversation waiting to happen. Something had happened, something that could change everything I thought I knew about my parents, about my family, about my own life. And as I sat frozen on my bed, staring at the man I loved and trusted most, I knew I was about to uncover a truth that would haunt me forever. I had always thought our family was simple, even perfect in its own way. My dad, with his booming laughter and easy charm, was the center of our home, while my mom, quiet but steady, held everything together like an unseen anchor. My younger brother, energetic and mischievous, filled our lives with chaos that somehow always felt comforting. I believed I understood the rhythm of our household, the predictable ebb and flow of jokes, chores, and shared dinners. But beneath the surface, there were cracks I had chosen not to see. In the days leading up to that night, subtle shifts had unsettled me. Dad seemed distracted, often retreating into his study or disappearing for long walks without explanation. Mom worked late more frequently, exhausted but smiling as though everything was normal. I sensed tension in the corners of conversations, in fleeting glances they exchanged, in the unspoken words that lingered like smoke in the air. I wanted to ignore it, to cling to the illusion of safety, but an uneasy curiosity had started to gnaw at me. Something was off, and I couldn't escape the feeling that it was bigger than what I could see. That evening, I remember the house was quiet in a way that felt unnatural. The usual hum of activity had dulled, leaving only the soft ticking of the wall clock and the occasional distant sound of traffic outside. I lay in my bed, my phone in hand, yet unable to focus, the pit in my stomach refusing to settle. It was then I heard it, the faintest creak of the bedroom door. My first instinct was to dismiss it, just the house settling, or perhaps my brother sneaking in, but the hesitation in the movement, the careful way the door edged open, told me otherwise. When I saw him, my father, standing hesitantly in the doorway, eyes wide and avoiding mine, something inside me shifted. He looked different. Vulnerable. Afraid. The man who had always seemed invincible now seemed small, fragile, human in a way I hadn't seen before. For a moment, I couldn't speak. The familiar safety of my home felt fragile, as if it could collapse with a single misstep. I realized then that this was not a casual visit, not a father simply checking on his child. The tension radiating from him, the way he held himself back, hinted at a truth too heavy to carry silently. And for the first time, I understood that the image of perfection I had clung to was incomplete. My parents, my family, even my own understanding of love and loyalty, everything I thought I knew, was about to be tested. As I sat there, frozen between disbelief and a growing sense of dread, I understood one thing with absolute clarity. That night would mark the beginning of a revelation I could neither predict nor avoid. The foundation of my family was not as solid as I had believed, and the choices my parents had made, choices hidden behind polite smiles and ordinary routines, were about to ripple through our lives in ways I wasn't yet ready to comprehend. "Dad!" My voice trembled, betraying the mixture of fear and disbelief coiling in my chest. He flinched, as if I had caught him in a moment too fragile to survive exposure. The doorway, once a threshold to safety, now felt like the edge of a chasm I wasn't sure I wanted to peer into. He hesitated, eyes darting toward the hall where my mom slept peacefully. "Sir!" His voice faltered, breaking against the weight of words he clearly feared. I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands clenched and unclenched, as if holding on to some invisible anchor. "Why are you here?" I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady, though the tremor persisted. He looked at me then, fully, and for the first time, I saw the man beneath the familiar smile, a man carrying guilt, fear, and desperation all at once. I needed to talk to someone," he said finally. I couldn't tell your mom." "Not yet." His words hung in the air, fragile as glass. I shook my head, confusion and disbelief warring within me. "Talk to me." "About what?" His gaze fell, and the silence stretched unbearably. Then, as though he could no longer bear the weight of pretense, he sank onto the edge of my bed. I've made a mistake," he admitted, voice barely audible. "A terrible mistake. I didn't mean for it to happen, and I never wanted anyone to get hurt." I felt my stomach twist, my mind racing to process what I had just heard. "What kind of mistake?" My voice was quieter now, almost a whisper. I already feared I knew the answer. He exhaled shakily. I've been seeing someone else." The words struck me like lightning, jolting my senses into sharp, painful clarity. My father, my protector, my guide, the man whose laughter once filled our home, had betrayed the trust that had always felt unshakable. My heart pounded, each beat echoing in my ears like a drum of warning. "You, what?" I choked out, disbelief making my words tremble. My mind raced, trying to reconcile the image of the man I knew with the one sitting silently beside me, broken and ashamed. "I know," he whispered, voice cracking. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know how to fix this. I came here because I needed someone to know the truth, even if it's just you. I can't carry this alone anymore." I wanted to scream, to run, to wake my mom and demand answers. But the truth settled like a weight on my chest, pinning me in place. I realized that my home, the sanctuary I had always trusted, was no longer safe from secrets. The life I thought I understood was fragile, and the foundation my parents had built together was beginning to fracture in ways I could neither ignore nor undo. For a long time, we sat in silence, the only sound the faint ticking of the clock and the steady rhythm of my own breath. I wanted to hate him, and part of me did, but another part, the part that still loved him, refused to let go entirely. The conflict between anger, betrayal, and love churned inside me like a storm I could not escape. By the time he left, the air between us was heavy with unspoken truths, and I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. That night had begun like any other, but it ended with a revelation that would haunt me forever. The following days felt surreal, as if I were walking through a dream I couldn't wake from. Every glance, every casual smile between my parents, now seemed layered with hidden meanings I had never noticed before. I replayed that night endlessly in my mind, the creak of the door, the way my father's eyes avoided mine, the quiet confession that had shattered the illusion of perfection I had clung to. I tried to carry on as normal, to sit through family dinners and laugh at the little jokes, but the tension was impossible to ignore. I found myself watching my parents more closely, searching for signs, listening for anything that might confirm or contradict what I had learned. Each moment was charged, a silent minefield of potential revelation. And yet, my father's presence, once comforting, now filled me with a mixture of anger, sorrow, and a reluctant empathy. One evening, unable to sleep, I found myself standing outside my father's study. The door was slightly ajar, light spilling out into the hallway. He looked up when I entered, startled, and for a moment neither of us spoke. The weight of what had happened hovered between us, dense and suffocating. "I can't stop thinking about it," I admitted finally, my voice low. How could you?" He exhaled slowly, rubbing his hands over his face as though trying to erase the shame etched there. "I don't know," he confessed. "I was weak, and I made choices I shouldn't have. I love your mom, I've always loved her, but I lost my way for a while. I never wanted to hurt anyone. Least of all you." I stared at him, trying to reconcile the man who had guided me, cheered me on, and protected me with this flawed, human figure before me. "And the other person?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper, though part of me dreaded the answer. He shook his head, shame evident in every line of his posture. "It doesn't matter. What matters is that I've made a mistake I'm trying to fix. I can't undo the past, but I can try to make things right." The silence that followed was both heavy and revealing. I realized then that truth has a gravity that changes everything, not just in the moment, but in the way we perceive the people we love. My father, once untouchable in my mind, was now undeniably human, capable of error, remorse, and an aching desire to repair what he had damaged. I wanted to recoil, to retreat into anger and disappointment, yet a reluctant understanding began to bloom. The man I had admired was flawed, yes, but flawed in a way that made him painfully, achingly real. Love, I realized, was not always pure or unbroken. Sometimes it was messy, complicated, and morally ambiguous. As he left my room that night, the tension did not dissipate, but something shifted. The revelation had been laid bare, raw and unrelenting, and now it was mine to carry. I knew life in our house would never feel entirely the same, yet I also understood that understanding, however painful, was the first step toward any kind of healing. And in that quiet, suspended moment, I realized, some truths are unbearable, yet knowing them is unavoidable, and the path forward, whatever it might be, begins with facing them, one fragile step at a time. The days after that night were quieter, but not peaceful. The house continued its rhythm, dinners were served, dishes washed, my mother hummed softly as she tidied up, but beneath it all, the undercurrent of what I knew ran like a river I could neither stop nor cross without caution. I carried the secret with me, tucked deep inside, a weight I had no choice but to bear. My father became quieter too, cautious, as if every word, every glance, might betray his inner turmoil. There were moments when I caught him staring at my mother, longing and regret mingling in his expression, and I felt an ache for both of them. My mom, unaware, smiled and laughed as she always had, oblivious to the cracks beneath the surface. The contrast between her serenity and the truth I held felt surreal, almost unbearable. I learned to navigate our family life differently. Conversations were filtered, jokes lighter than before, and silences longer, yet somehow more meaningful. I couldn't pretend nothing had changed. I couldn't erase the knowledge of human frailty, of mistakes that could shatter trust in a heartbeat. And yet, I also saw glimpses of effort, small acts of reconciliation, a soft word from my father to my mother, a careful patience in his tone, a quiet commitment to repairing what he had fractured. Living with the secret taught me a strange kind of empathy. I began to understand that even those we love most are capable of missteps, and that redemption is not instantaneous but painstakingly earned through honesty, humility, and the willingness to face consequences. My anger, my betrayal, my confusion, they remained, but they no longer consumed me entirely. I realized that love, even when flawed, is not negated. It is complicated, messy, and sometimes requires endurance and understanding beyond what seems fair. I also discovered the limits of control. I could not fix my parents' mistakes. I could not dictate the course of their choices or erase the pain that lingered. All I could do was observe, learn, and decide how to exist within this new reality. The tension in our home persisted, but it was no longer paralyzing. It became a reminder of imperfection, of humanity, of the truths that quietly shape our lives. Some nights, I still remember the way the door creaked, the way his voice trembled, the way the silence between us carried more meaning than words ever could. That memory, once terrifying, now serves as a marker of growth, a testament to resilience and the endurance of family ties despite betrayal. Life didn't return to what I thought was normal, but I learned that perhaps normal is an illusion anyway. What matters is how we navigate the fractures, how we choose to confront or carry them, and how we continue to love, imperfectly but deliberately. That night, my perception of my parents and of love itself was forever altered. And though the shadows of secrets linger, I have come to understand that facing them and surviving them is what ultimately shapes who we become.